Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today's is another good one because we're talking about cold weather periods like we've been in recently here. I want to continue with some of the jerkbait trend that I've been doing. And specifically, today we're going to talk about discontinued jerkbaits. You know, there are so many jerkbaits that come and go that it's hard to keep track of which ones actually catch fish and which ones don't. One thing that we routinely see in the fishing industry is a company comes out with a new bait. If it doesn't take off in that first year, they generally scrap it and move on to the next newest, hottest trend. And what that does is it means there's a lot of discontinued baits out there that, well, some of them didn't work, which is why they didn't sell good. And some of them just didn't catch on, but they work great. So I've got here 5 discontinued jerkbaits for you that if you happen to stumble upon, you might want to purchase. You know, you can find these a lot of times at garage sales or flea markets. Some of them you might actually still be able to find on the shelves, but these are all discontinued jerkbaits that I still use to this day. And anytime I see them, I try to buy them if I get my chance to. And none of, some of them might go for a few bucks. Other ones really aren't all that well received. But I can assure you they are great jerkbaits. So that's what we're going to talk about today are these discontinued jerkbaits. I've done a bunch of videos like this in the past. They seem to be very well received. I'm a tackle junkie. I love to find discontinued baits. I love to add them to my collection. And when I can, I still use them in my professional level tournaments. So, guys, we're going to talk about these. The first one is one that I have caught a pile of fish on. I don't even remember where I first got them from, but I remember I bought a whole pile of them and they were just right off the bat dynamite for me. If you happen to live in the Wisconsin areas, it's one of my favorite jerkbaits to throw on the Madison chain of lakes. I can't tell you what it is, but the fish out there absolutely love them. And that is the Daiwa TD Minnow, the suspending TD Minnow. This has been discontinued for a while now. They've got a pretty good hardcore group of users that still love these, but it is one that I would say overall from the mass appeal is most people haven't tried them. But the Daiwa TD Minnow is a great jerk bait. I really like the profile on these baits. They're not the typical 4.5 inch length. These are like I think 3 3/4, but they've got a little deeper body on it, so it's a little bit smaller of a bait. They did come out, I believe, with a couple of different sizes, but this is one bait that just seems to trigger strikes. Again, I really love these two colors specifically, but I've got a whole pile of them. I bought them. I got them on a super clearance like when they discontinued them. So I wish I had bought more, but I do probably have 25 of these. The gold color is a great one. This ghost bluegill color is another really good one as well. But the Daiwa TD Minnow, it's a bait that I use all of the time. I generally, when I've got a major tournament where I'm really catching them good on the jerk bait, it's one of the baits that I have tied on if I've got 4 or 5 different jerk bait rods. But it's one that if you can find it, I recommend trying to purchase it. The next one is one that you can probably still find on the shelves. It's one that I wish had not been discontinued. This is the Berkeley Cutter Minnow. This is one, no offense to Berkeley, we know they're a sponsor of mine. It's not, I don't know why, to me, from an eye-catching appeal, it's not the most pretty looking jerkbait. You know, it's kind of just got a shape that to me generally is not like the most appealing. It's a little bit less traditional. But I will tell you, this is one of my favorite jerkbaits to throw. It triggers strikes. You know, it's got a very streamlined approach into the bill, which allows you to get consistently very good deep running depths. And it's got the it factor. Sometimes you can't specifically explain what it is that triggers strikes, but this is a jerkbait that they discontinued last year. They replaced it with the Stunna, which is another great jerkbait. But they moved on from the cutter, and there is a very good hardcore following group of people that love to throw the cutter. And it's one that you can still find occasionally on the shelves. They're not producing it, but it's been discontinued recently enough that you can find it. Man, I wish I had a pile more of these, but this is a really good one. You can see, I mean, this has got a bunch of hook rash already on it. It's got the Fusion 19 hooks. It's just a really good jerk bait. I think they retailed for like $7 when they came out, so they're not an expensive one. Um, so if you can find it, pick them up. All right, the next one is one that's got a very good following. They do sell for a little bit more, I'd say, on the secondary market. They're selling for about $30. But this is the old Excalibur XS4. It's just a suspending typical jerkbait, similar to, it's got a similar shape to like the Rattling Rogue, which is what I feel like it was modeled after when they came out with it. It's since been discontinued, but like a lot of the Excalibur baits, you know, they offered the XR50 lipless. They had this. They've got a square bill. They didn't have many baits, but they've got a very hardcore following, and there's good reason. They all seem to catch fish, and this suspending minnow is one that I love. This gold color I've talked about in the past. I feel like gold is one of the best all-around colors that you can throw, but it's one that's kind of been forgotten about. These came with the rotating hooks on them. Just a great jerkbait. It does have a good following, so they do drive a pretty good hefty price. If you can find them, I'd say it's worth the investment, but they are pretty tough to find at this point. They've been discontinued for, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years at this point, something like that. But it's a good one. The next one is one that I've won a lot of money on too. This is a Megabass, and I've talked about this one. This is the Megabass Silent Riser. It's a 110 Silent Riser, if you can see it there. What that means is it's a very slow floating bait, meaning it runs basically as a suspending Vision 110, but instead of suspending, it's got a very slow float. And what I love this bait for is fishing shallow flats. So say you're fishing a rock flat in that 4 to 5 foot depth range where you can get this bait down to the bottom, you can bump it into the bottom, but because it slowly floats, you can get it away from some of that cover. So it's a deeper running jerk bait that has that slow float, and it just generates a lot of strikes. It's a bait that's been discontinued for a couple of years now. Again, they drive maybe a little bit of a premium over the typical $25 Megabass Vision 110 range, but it's a great situational jerkbait. One that, again, I've caught a lot of fish that have won me a lot of money on this bait, specifically fishing shallow flats where a traditional suspending jerkbait runs too deep. So if you can find it, the Megabass Silent Riser is a very good one. The last one is one that, you know, I think, you know, previously in the video, I mentioned how some baits just weren't given enough time to succeed. And that's how I feel about this. This is the Rapala long cast minnow. Now, this is a bait that was designed to make really long casts, which we know if you're a jerkbait fisherman, long casts are a critical component to a successful jerkbait, meaning, you know, that was one of the issue with the early jerkbaits, right? So if you were throwing, say, a Rattling Rogue, they are very light baits. They generate a lot of strikes, but it was hard to cast them a long distance, especially if you're throwing them into the wind, which is one of the reasons why I started throwing spinning gear. It was to help me make long casts with the jerkbaits that didn't have good weight transfer systems in them like they do now, where you can make a good long cast. But hence the name long cast minnow. This is one that Rapala came out with, and I feel like it came out for a year. I don't feel like there was much of a push behind it from a company standpoint or their pro staff standpoint, and it just did not succeed. But I'll tell you, this is one bait similar to like the countdown minnows I've talked about that has become a good bait for me if I'm using forward-facing sonar. It's a slow sinking minnow. It allows you to get it down into that range. It's got the same jerkbait profile, and it's overall a very good bait. It is one that you can still find on the secondary market pretty readily. They came out with a bunch of different sizes. It's got great motion in the water. It's one that it just wasn't given enough time. That's my opinion on it. I don't think there's very few people I've ever run into that have used it. But the whole idea behind it was to allow you to make really long casts with it, to get it away from the boat, to get it off of the shore if you're a bank angler, and it just never got hold. So it's a bait that's been discontinued, and it's one that is still out there. You probably won't find it on the shelves, but you probably find it, you know, on eBay and some of the secondary marketplaces. I know I've got a handful of them. I wish I had more, especially now since the invention of forward-facing sonar, because it is a bait that works very well with that. So, guys, in the comment section, if I missed some, and I know I did because there's a lot of good ones out there. Jackal's had a few that they've gotten rid of. There's been a lot of jerkbaits that are still out there, but there were different models of them that have been discontinued. You know, most of the companies come out with different versions of their successful jerkbaits that sometimes don't last. And there's a lot of good ones like that too. But a jerkbait, like I said, a jerkbait's one of those baits over the last, I'll say 10 or 15 years. I feel like most companies have come out with versions of it. A lot of them haven't stuck, some of them have. So if there's ones out there that you think I've missed, or I need to try, or I need to try to pick up if I see them somewhere at a garage sale or something like that, throw it in the comment section so that the rest of us can learn from you guys as well. If you enjoy these videos, hit the like button and I'll do more discontinued videos. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet either, please do that and stay tuned. We'll have a new one coming out tomorrow for you.